Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting for the Township of Georgian Bay for Friday, April 11th. I hereby call the meeting to order at 10 a.m. I would also like... Okay, thank you. I'd like to acknowledge that we are working on the lands traditionally occupied by the Indigenous peoples. Indigenous people continue to care for this land and continue to shape our township. We show our respect and will continually honor the treaties that were signed as we consider our decisions and actions. I would ask all members of the committee, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest? Okay, seeing none, everyone has had the opportunity to review the minutes of our March 7th meeting. I have a resolution moved by Member Rivet, seconded by Member Predko. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves the minutes of March 7, 2025 as circulated. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried. This morning, there is a public meeting scheduled for 8 minor variance applications. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the application on the agenda this morning, please add your contact information to the document that's sitting on the table in front of you, or you can request the information online. I'll briefly summarize the procedure to be followed for this morning's meeting. First, the clerk will advise the committee as to when, how, and to whom notice of each of the hearings was circulated for the applications being considered. Next, each of the applications will be considered separately. Planning staff will advise as to the purpose and effect of the applications and provide any information that is relevant. The clerk will summarize any correspondence on file, and from there, the public will have an opportunity to speak to the applications being considered. After the public forum, the committee will then deliberate on the proposed applications and consider a motion to pass, defeat, or defer the decision of the applications. The minor variance applications being considered this morning are A25-08 for 386 Corrievale Road, A25-09 for 600 Hungry Bay Road, A25-10 for 2 Island 860, A25-11 for 20 Island 2060, A25-12 for 127 Bollocks Road, A25-13 for 17548 Georgian Bay Shore, A25-14 for 20 Arthur Island, and A25-15 for 2163 Harrison Trail. To the secretary, please.
Notice of each of the applications was sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 meters, 500 meters, or 800 meters, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the applications. The notices were sent at least 20 days prior to this morning's meeting. Included in each notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the application and a key map showing the location of the property. Other relevant information may have also been provided. These circulations were provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act 1990.
Thank you. Our first application this morning is minor variance application A25-08 for 386 Corrievale Road. To the planner, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of committee. First application on the agenda is A25-08 for 386 Corrievale Road for Bill and Yolanta McKay. The property known as 386 Corrievale Road, sorry, just apologize for that, as 386 Corrievale Road is comprised of approximately 0.53 hectares located at the mouth of Lamb Bay on the Trent Severn Waterway. The waterfront in front of the property is identified by the MNRF as part of a provincially significant wetland, and care must be taken during redevelopment of the sensitive features. At the present time, according to MPAC, there is currently a single detached dwelling with attached garage, 2 cabins, a detached garage with a sleeping cabin, and a boathouse. The lot has a substantial amount of mature trees and natural vegetation, and the property is within an area of seasonal and permanent residential lots, and the subject property is in keeping with the surrounding land uses. A minor variance was approved by the Committee of Adjustment on October the 11th, 2024, to facilitate the demolition of the existing cottage and the construction of a single detached dwelling in the approximate same footprint as the legal non-complying dwelling. Upon further discussions with the applicant following the approved decision in October, it was determined that it would be beneficial to include the area above the proposed garage as habitable space, which would increase the gross floor area by approximately 42%, as well as increase the maximum lot area permitted. An application for a minor variance was received by the township on February the 13th of this year as a result of the consultation with planning staff. The owners are proposing to incorporate a bedroom with an ensuite bathroom in the loft area of the garage. The proposed dwelling will not be closer to the high water mark than the existing dwelling, which is recognized as legal non-complying. The same conditions opposed in minor variance file A2350 are being recommended for this request if the variance is approved. The variance approved in October 2024 dealt with the legal non-complying status of the existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling utilizing the existing high watermark setback. In order to utilize the loft space above the proposed attached garage, variances are being further requested for an increase in the maximum gross floor area and also the maximum lot coverage. The original proposal resulting in a variance in October did not require an increase in the maximum lot coverage, as the area above the attached garage was to be an open loft for storage at that time. The owners, as stated, would like to increase the gross floor area further by utilizing this loft area above the attached garage for human habitation. This will increase the gross floor area by an additional 42.06%, resulting in a gross floor area of 338.82 square meters. As the gross floor area is being increased further, it will result in an increase in the lot coverage, which will be 11.07%, whereas the maximum lot coverage permitted in the SR1 zone is 10%. Staff are supportive of the variance request, subject to the recommended conditions being included in an approved decision and the owner fulfilling the requirements of the conditions implemented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, has there been any correspondence on this application?
One letter was received from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating building permits would be required and that a review of the septic system capacity would be required. And one letter of support was received from Michael Bolhoff.
Thank you. Is the applicant present and do they wish to address the committee? Please step forward, give us your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Ian Robertson.
Is the little red light on in that thing? All right, there you
Oh, is it not turned on at the back?
go. There you go.
Good morning. My name is Ian Robertson. I'm the applicant for the owners at 386 Corrievale Drive. I didn't prepare a presentation, but I'm actually happy to answer any questions the committee might have. I am aware that we have support for this application, and we do still believe it's minor, as the footprint actually hasn't changed, and the proposal is actually within the roof cavity that's already there as a proposal. So, as I mentioned, I'm happy to answer any questions the committee might have on the subject.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll wait until we come to the committee to see if there are any questions. Is there any member of the public present that wishes to respond to this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And seeing none, you have one. Okay, very well. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. McKay, can you clarify for me why the lot coverage is increasing if the structure is already there? I understand GFA. I don't understand lot coverage.
Through you, Mr. Chair, when we calculate lot coverage, of course, it's based on the GFA of the structures on the property. So that's correct. Because we're increasing the GFA, it increases the lot coverage.
And I also remembered, I thought reading something that this was be a sort of a temporary use for during construction. It's going to be permanent, right?
This is permanent. There's nothing temporary about what's going on here.
Thank you.
Member Jarvis, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions. One from the original application. Thank you, Fred.
1%.
Oh, that's what
There we go. Yeah, perfect. We're all set now. In the original application, there was, I thought, a concession by the landowners to do some restoration on the waterfront. Do we know if that has taken place?
Through you, Mr. Chair, nothing has transpired at all on the property at this point. That restoration will be done upon completion of the actual development itself. Once the house is built, it will be done. It's one of the conditions and be in minor variance agreement.
Okay, and then secondly, I think, I don't know, hard to say now after the fact, if we'd been told originally that we were looking at 164% increase in lot coverage versus 122 gross floor area, I think we would have had a different point of view on what was going on there. It's obvious to me that bit of GFA above the garage was going to have an intended purpose at some point in time. Why did we wait till after they got approval on the first part to seek further approval on more GFA? It seems to me a little, I don't know, unfortunate if nothing else.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the owner came to me and asked if it was a possibility that they could amend and apply for another variance to include that because they wanted to make sure that the space was being utilized. I will let the agent answer that if he has any more information on why they decided to do that now.
Through you, Mr. Chair. During the original application, we had only created preliminary floor plans and footprints and an elevation concept for the application. And through the development of the design itself, the owner decided, or after that application was actually granted, we actually finalized the designs, which is the package you have before you. And during that process, the owner thought that would be best. We actually didn't have space up there to begin with. And then we thought about putting storage. And then she's like, well, why don't we just go? I said, it's actually, to be honest, it was my idea to go forward with it to make sure it was part of the application. It's built within the roof line. And there actually, even though the coverage number does go up, it doesn't change the footprint, whether it was there or not. The calculation for your coverage number, because it's based on the GFA, it's not a typical coverage number. Coverage is typically footprint, but this is built within a roof line. It was actually not visible. There's no visible change. Whether this is granted or not, our drawings won't change whatsoever, except we'll remove that second floor area. The design concept with this being a bungalow with a loft up there, it's the same space, same volume. So it was just an afterthought for the client because they have grandkids and families growing and stuff. It's just their place, right? So they want to be able to accommodate all of their family, grandkids, and whatnot. So.
Thank you, just Chair. I just think it's unfortunate we weren't aware of this originally, and it might have given us a different point of view. I can't say for sure, who knows now, but on the original application. Thank you.
Yes, it does. On above the garage? No, the original design when we had gone for our October application had nothing above the garage initially. It was only after the application was done and we were developing the actual design further. Because as I said, the concept at the time for the October 11th was only preliminary concept. We had only done basic floor plans and a sketch rendering, just to give a flavor for what we're proposing there. From that date, we've actually shrunk the footprint from what we originally asked for that was approved at that time. The building length and depth are actually smaller now in this application than they were in that application overall. The difference was we weren't planning on building on a second floor or loft level at all. And through the future design, the applicant or the owners wanted to increase space above that garage as an option. And that's why we're here now. So it's my understanding that the original septic bed was designed with,
Okay,
sorry, it's my understanding that the original septic design years ago was actually done to accommodate more bathrooms than that were actually built on the property, but we haven't done an investigation yet because we haven't done any land work out there. So septic will have to be reviewed, obviously, to make sure it complies.
the next step is building permit,
Yep.
then all those, all right.
Correct.
That's very good. Are there any other questions or comments? Member Predko?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I just two questions for the planner, actually, and one is to confirm that in the area that this property is being developed, the GFA restriction that is being listed is the percentage increase. It's not that there's a cap that's being offended by
That's
the
correct.
GFA. Okay. And secondary question is that in the planning report, it mentions that this loft area will be used for habitation during construction, and that's still not permitted by lack of an occupancy permit. And I just want to make sure that if it's being occupied during construction, it's really only as an office. It's not for sleeping quarters.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I apologize. I don't recall putting that in my report.
It's in the resolution.
Oh. Okay, I will look into that. Give me 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And I'll pause then, but that would be the main question I have is we're not going to be inhabiting the house during construction.
I'm through you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at my recommendations right now and I don't see that. What page is it on?
Through the chair, on the first page of the planning staff report, it begins, "Be it resolved," and it's a fourth line down after that.
Mine doesn't say that. I wonder what happened.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm not sure why that would pop up in the planning report.
No.
However, this house is planned to be torn down entirely, so there'd be no possibility of habitating during construction. Right? We'd have to build the garage first and then build the rest of the house, so there is no physical possibility of
And that's
habitating
why I
this.
was asking.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's a moot point.
yes.
Thank you for cleaning up. There are no further requests.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Member Matthews.
Thank you.
Yeah. If there are no further questions or comments, I will read the,
Excuse me, and through you, just for point of clarification, is there a revised motion that has the wording taken out, just so we can make sure we have the right motion in front of us?
I can clarify as well. I just read it again. That's not what my intent was by the way I wrote it. My intent, what I was trying to say, and it was my fault the way I worded it, was
we have no-
during the construction, they're now going to include the habitable space above the garage, not habitate the space during construction. It's the way I worded it. I apologize.
Thank you.
That
I think
was
we
not
just
my
need that,
intent.
we just need that wording in the motion
Yes.
so we can all approve it appropriately. Thanks.
I apologize for that.
Sorry, so you wanted to say not for habitation? Or do you want me to strike it out? Okay.
All right, thank you for that. Seeing no further questions or comments, and I see no one online, I'll read the resolution. It is moved by Member Graziano, seconded by Member Rivet. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A23-50 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 386 Corrievale Road to facilitate additional gross floor area by including the loft area above the proposed attached garage of the new dwelling, which is subject to the approval of minor variance application A23-50. The additional gross floor area will increase the lot coverage by a variance, and a variance of the maximum lot coverage percentage is required as described below. The permitted maximum increase is 122%, whereas proposed is 164.06. And the maximum lot coverage is 10%, where the proposed is 11.07%, subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And two, that the proposed single detached dwelling be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And three, that the owner enters into a minor variance agreement with the Township of Georgian Bay to include a planting and landscaping plan to the satisfaction of staff and to ensure that the plantings are completed on or before April 2026. And four, that the agent or owner prepares an erosion and sediment control plan satisfactory to the township to be included in a minor variance agreement, and that the plan is executed throughout the duration of the construction of the proposed development subject to minor variance application A25-08. And five, that an Ontario land surveyor, professional engineer, or certified engineering technologist verify by pinning the foundation wall and verifying in writing, or by way of survey or real estate property report prior to the pouring of the footing, and if no footing, the foundation, that the new dwelling is no closer than 8.5 meters from the front lot line. And six, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township, only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Our next application is minor variance application A25-09 for 600 Hungry Bay Road. To the planner, please.
Through the chair. The lands are designated waterfront within the district and township official plans and are also located within the 6 Mile Lake inland waterfront community. The property is within a deer wintering area, contains moderate to high archaeological potential, and the shoreline contains type 2 fish habitat. The subject property has an area of 2,620 square meters and a frontage of 36.31 meters on 6 Mile Lake. A detached dwelling with attached deck, 2 accessory buildings, and a dock occupy the lands. The rear yard is forested with mature trees and contains a gravel driveway. The front yard is dominated by granite rock, contains some pockets of grass and a few trees. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the reconstruction and expansion of a legal non-complying detached dwelling, as well as reduce setback from a shed. The applicant is proposing an increase to the gross floor area by 49.78 square meters for a total of 136.8 square meters, whereas the zoning bylaw permits an increase to the gross floor area by 34.88 square meters for a total of 122.1 square meters. They're also proposing a dwelling width of 13.4 meters, whereas 11.86 meters exists. And the zoning bylaw permits an increase of 6 meters, provided the width complies with the maximum permitted in the 6 Mile Lake residential zone, which is 25% of the lot frontage, or 9.13 meters. They're also proposing a portion of the expansion to encroach further into the existing front yard by 2.2 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw does not permit any portion of the expansion to encroach further into the existing front yard, as well as a distance of 2 meters between the proposed dwelling expansion and the existing shed, whereas the zoning bylaw requires accessory buildings to be set back a minimum of 5 meters from all other buildings. The applicant's request for a separation of 2 meters from the proposed dwelling expansion to the shed, whereas 5 meters is required, is subject to Section 45(1) of the Planning Act. The shed is situated behind a large granite rock outcrop and is surrounded by trees. Staff are of the opinion that since the shed location is not changing, it will not have an impact on the natural heritage and aesthetic integrity of 6 Mile Lake, as there are no significant heritage features on or abutting the lands, and the shed is located towards the rear of the proposed dwelling, again behind a granite rock outcrop. In accordance with the principles of the community, the visual impact of development from the water is an important parameter in maintaining the character of the lake. The intent of the 5-meter separation between buildings on shoreline properties is to limit density or the number of buildings on a property while allowing sufficient space for access and maintenance purposes, and in doing so limiting the presence of development on water bodies. The location of the shed will not obstruct access to either building and is screened from view by lake users with the presence of granite rock and trees in the side and front yards. The variances regarding dwelling gross floor area, width, and front yard are expansions of a legal nonconforming situation and are therefore evaluated against the 2 tests under subsection 45(2) of the Planning Act. The tests for an application for permission to expand under subsection 45(2) are 1. Whether the application is desirable for appropriate development of the subject property, and 2. Whether the application will result in undue adverse impacts on the surrounding properties and neighborhood. When applying these tests, only the proposed expansion may be evaluated for undue adverse impacts. The existing building footprint is being utilized and is surrounded by trees and granite rock. No blasting is required or proposed, despite the extensive presence of granite rock. The dwelling will remain 1 story with a height of 5.4 meters, whereas 6 meters is permitted. A gross floor area of 136.8 square meters is proposed, whereas the 6 Mile Lake residential zone permits a lot of this size to have a dwelling with a gross floor area of 190 square meters. The smallest of the 2 interior side yards, which is legal non-complying, is being increased from 4.8 meters to 5.5 meters, achieving compliance with the 6 Mile Lake residential zone minimum interior side yard requirement. There are no sensitive natural heritage features on or abutting the subject lands. And the location is similar to that of many dwellings on 6 Mile Lake. As we know and supported by aerial imagery, majority have a legal non-complying front yard setback. Staff have completed a detailed analysis of the variances in the associated staff report and are recommending approval. The committee can either approve or deny the variance pertaining to the distance between the shed and dwelling. For the committee to deny the variances pertaining to the dwelling expansion, the undue adverse impacts of the proposed expansion must be demonstrated by objective evidence and must be sufficient to override the property owner's right to reasonable flexibility, evolution, and expansion. The committee can defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, has there been any correspondence on this application?
1 letter was received from Kelly Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating building permits will be required in review of the septic system capacity.
Thank you. Is the applicant present, and do they wish to address the committee?
The agent, Ms. Lemieux, is online.
Okay.
And Perhaps the applicant is in
Please,
person.
okay, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Mark and Lori Richardson and 600 Hungry Bay Road.
Okay, and Ms. Lemieux, we have you online.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Victoria Lemieux, Associate Planner with Morgan Planning and Development, and our address is 21 Matchedash Street, Suite 101, Orillia, Ontario.
Thank you for that. Is there anything that you wish to add to the planner's comments so far?
Chair, thank you very much. I was hoping to just run through a couple of additional quick slides. I really appreciate staff's thorough overview of the application, but wanted to provide committee a little bit more background as to, you know, the intent of the design and why we're seeking the application in front of you this morning. If you don't mind me sharing a couple of slides.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Let me accommodate that. All right. Okay.
Can you see my screen now, Chair?
Not yet.
Perfect. Oh.
There we go.
Anything yet? There we go. Okay, thank you very much. Again, thank you very much, Chair and members of the committee. Nice to see everybody this morning. As mentioned, I'm here on behalf of Mark and Lori, who are there in person. The application, again, I believe was well described by staff, which we really appreciate and have appreciated their work on this file so far. Just wanted to provide the committee with a little bit more background on the existing built form and why the design looks the way that it does on the site plan in front of you. So just some additional context. So here we have that existing single family dwelling on the property. And for committee's understanding, the existing footprint is about 64 square meters, which is 689 square feet. So I think, you know, most folks would you know, agree in the comment that that is quite a modest cottage for a family to utilize throughout the year. There is some additional, of course, rock outcroppings that staff identified. It is the intent of the owners to work within the existing landscape and overall topography of the site, as you can see here to the rear. And this was you know, the important piece when it came to utilizing that existing setback to the water versus moving further back. You can see there is this existing rock outcrop here to the rear of the dwelling in the shed, and it does also go closer to the left, but unfortunately my photo did not capture that. But again, these photos from staff, I think, just better provide committee the understanding of the constraints that we were working with. And even in particular, this tree that's right in front of the dwelling, the owners are really looking to try and save that tree as part of the design. So I just wanted to flip to the site plan drawing a little bit closer here just to point out a couple of items. So again, as you can see here, we've reorientated the cottage footprint. This essentially is, you know, resulting in a couple of positives in my opinion. Number one, as staff mentioned, we are now bringing that southern setback into conformity to the neighboring property, which is always a bonus, especially on properties such as these on Hungry Bay Road that are so narrow in lot frontage. We are hoping to achieve retention of that tree that I identified in the previous slide there. And also, again, by reorientating it, it's providing the Richardsons more square footage to utilize while still working within the rock outcroppings that are essentially, we'll go back there, essentially wrapping the entire development area. So that orientation there is really why it looks that way. And also just wanted to point out, though the application in front of you committee is seeking a 2.2 reduction in front yard setback. Again, I think it's reasonable to make the comment that generally the cottage is staying in the same place. By reorientating that footprint, we essentially are just creating another pinch point to an uneven shoreline, which again, this committee is likely familiar in seeing. So it generally, in my opinion, I do not believe the cottage is getting closer to the water where we typically say that something is getting closer to the water. We're really just trying to work with the existing developable area that we can. And again, just pointing out again that reduced setback as well to the existing shed. And again, overall, as staff provided in their slide, the proposed elevation in my opinion, I think is maintaining a modest built form to match the existing development in the surrounding area and also mimic that existing built form that is on the site. So just wanted to provide some additional points there, Chair. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak and here for any questions or comments, as well as, of course, Mark and Lori. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Lemieux. Is there anything you want to add to what Ms. Lemieux had to offer?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. No, I believe Victoria's done a good job. We've been working with her for a number of months now. I think she's been able to capture everything that we were thinking in terms of the property. So, but happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public that wishes to add anything to the discussion of this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And we'll begin with Member Schmidt.
This is and I brought this up a number of times, and I know that we are going to be reviewing some of the bylaws on 6 Mile Lake. We have a situation of an under 700 square foot cottage. Sounds like a big ask based on the numbers, but because it's such a small footprint to start with, had the opportunity to visit the site. I actually communicated with one of the neighbors there. Their concern strictly was height, that it wasn't going to be a 2-story walkout basement. I assured them that this certainly seems to be a very respectful redevelopment of an existing property, and I think it matches the conformity of that section of 6 Mile Lake very much so. But again, I hope that staff reviews the process, because the net result of this is still sub 1,500 square feet. I think this is a great use of the property and consider somewhat humble when you look at the other developments around the property. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Member Jarvis.
Thank you, through the chair. I too make the observation that it's unusual to see something that isn't 3 times the ask that we're currently seeing here today, and perhaps at some point we'll be requiring that, because that seems to be the vernacular for the area. But I do have a question for the planning department, and maybe since Victoria is here, it's great to see Victoria, and she has some history with the municipality. I'm curious to know why the 2-meter setback, why the 5-meter setback for a shed is required. Do we have reasoning for why 5 meters is the requirement for setback? I mean, I wouldn't want my bar being more than 2 meters away from the cottage, so I'm just curious.
Through the chair, it's a 5-meter setback requirement. It doesn't just apply to sheds. It applies to all accessory buildings and structures.
Is there reasoning for that, though, that you're aware of?
Through the chair, my understanding is the reason for the shoreline property, so any of our waterfront properties are subject to this 5-meter separation, as opposed to any inland properties, it's only 2. My understanding is to, I believe I did highlight it a little bit in my presentation, but it's basically to help with limiting the number of buildings on the property and the impact of development or view of development from the water.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? Nothing online. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, seeing none, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Jarvis, seconded by Member Rivet. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the following variances requested under minor variance application A25-09. Number 1, an increase in the gross floor area of a dwelling from 49.78 square meters for a total of 136.8 square meters, whereas section 411E permits an increase in the gross floor area by 34.88 square meters for a total of 122.1 square meters. 2, a dwelling width of 13.4 meters, whereas 11.86 meters exist, and section 411E permits an increase of 6 meters provided the width complies with the maximum permitted on 6 Mile Lake residential zone, being 25% of the lot coverage, which is 9.13 meters. 3, a portion of the building expansion encroaches further into existing front yard by 2.2 meters. Whereas section 4.11E does not permit any portion of the expansion to encroach further into the existing front yard. And 4, a distance of 2 meters between the proposed dwelling expansion and the existing shed, whereas section 4.1.8B requires accessory buildings to be set back a minimum of 5 meters from all other buildings, and subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And 2, that the proposed dwelling be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And 3, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee.
Our next application is minor variance application A25-11. I'm sorry, A25-10 for 2 Island 1860. To the planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject island property, known as Island 1860, is comprised of 1.41 hectares. The island is within the Cognachine coastal waterfront community. The island is made up mainly of granite rock with sporadic vegetation, mainly in the center area of the island. At the present time, and according to MPAC, there is an existing 422.06 square meter dwelling, a 54.63 square meter cabin, and a 4.27 square meter outdoor kitchen/bar on the property. The existing 148.64 square meter docking provides mooring to the island and received a building permit in 2005. A pre-application consultation was completed in January of this year, providing the applicant with what would be required to proceed with the dock construction as planned. A minor variance was submitted to the township on February 24th, 2025, requesting variances to section 4.1.13 of the zoning bylaw. The owner wishes to construct a new floating dock system to replace the existing dock to provide for adequate access and mooring of the property owner's boat. The original dock was constructed in 2005 and met the requirements of the Cognachine Coastal Waterfront Community provisions in zoning bylaw 91019. To achieve sufficient water depth for boats to be moored and operated safely, the applicant requires the dock to have a projection of 31.4 meters. The longest finger of the proposed dock will be 21 meters to accommodate the mooring of the larger vessel. The McKay family occupies many island properties on Georgian Bay and has many boats which they use to access the family properties. A new boat has been purchased, being 22 meters in length and much longer than other watercraft that frequently dock at this particular island property. I'm showing you a slide here on that it was added late in my presentation thanks to the agent. The red that is shown on this is the existing situation, with the green being the proposed, which is subject to this application. The existing dock is comprised of 148.64 square meters or 1,600 square feet, whereas the new dock will be 167.69 square meters or 1,805 square feet. The subject property is zoned SRI 7-52, which is a site-specific zoning in the Township of Georgian Bay zoning bylaw. This zone does permit detached dwellings and accessory structures. A dock is considered an accessory use. 4.1.13.2 docks, ramps, and boat lifts in the zoning bylaw states, as a new dock is being proposed, this section must be varied in order to achieve the desired outcome. There are specific provisions relating to docks in the Cognachine coastal waterfront community. 4.1.13.3 deals with the cumulative width of docks, boat lifts in water boathouses and boat ports. Special provisions are also included in this section for the Cognachine coastal waterfront community. To achieve sufficient water depth for boats to be moored and operated safely, the applicant does require the dock to have a projection of 31.4 meters. The longest finger of the proposed dock will be 21 meters to accommodate the mooring of the new larger vessel. Fisheries and Ocean Canada provides a code of practice outlining the best practices for the repair, maintenance, and construction of residential docks, moorings, and boathouses. A floating dock system causes minimal disruption of aquatic vegetation and is a wise choice because it causes minimal disruption of aquatic ecosystems. And when there are no aquatic grass beds, the shade cast by a floating dock cools the water during sunny periods and may foster habitat diversification and consequently provide shelter for fish. Staff are in support of the proposal as presented. I will go back and include the slide that Victoria did provide to me yesterday, just in case she wants to speak on it in a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, has there been any correspondence in this application?
One letter was received from Kelly Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating a building permit will be required, but had no concerns with the application, and one letter of support was received from Courtney.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant present, and do they wish to add any comments?
Good morning, committee. For the record, my name is Victoria Hoffman, here on behalf of Flow Drawings and Designing at 3 Violet Drive. Just to quickly recap here, this image here that I apologize, I sent in a little late in the game. But what I kind of want to renege on here is the size of the existing dock versus the proposed. The existing dock and ramp projection already exceeds what is allowed right now, but it was approved back in '05. The maximum dock finger also already exceeds, like the existing one does, that would be allowed right now. The cumulative dock area currently is 213 square meters. We're reducing that by 45 square meters. And the maximum cumulative width of the entire dock system currently is 38 meters, and we're reducing that by 14 meters. Lauren Cameron, I forget your title.
Property manager.
Yeah, he's also here to add some input and answer any questions. We're both here to answer any questions.
Okay. Is there something you wish to?
No, it's just a bigger boat. So.
Okay. We need to inspect that thing.
Yes, everyone should come over and inspect it.
Okay.
Actually, quickly too, just the longer finger is also along the shoreline, which was done for reasoning too, so it wasn't on the outside. The idea being that it'll be less invasive because it's closer to the shore, similar to the long shore deck that's on the other side, but we're kind of just wrapping it all up into the same E structure.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak to this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. Member Graziano. We cannot hear you. Can we?
How is that? Checking 1, 2, 3.
Very good.
Fantastic. Sorry, I should click the unmute on my Zoom meeting. In principle, I agree with the application. However, I do have some questions to planning staff. Specifically, how does this decision, should it be passed, align with past approvals within the Cognachine community?
Through you, Mr. Chair. It's an interesting scenario based on the fact that there's not, I don't have a lot of, couldn't find, shall I say, a lot of history based on docks within Cognachine in the recent years. However, as Victoria has stated, we're actually reducing some of the area. Yes, we are projecting farther out by a little bit, not too much really. And really the shape of the dock is not changing. The shape is the same. It's just we're kind of configuring it slightly different and then having a longer finger on the interior side. So it, like I said, I found it difficult to find any history as per se of docks of this type in the Cognachine area. So that's what I was trying to compare it to. And due to the size of this dock and where it is, it was difficult. So.
Thank you. One additional question, if I may, through you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Concerned with setting precedent, what mechanisms do we have in place, Deb, to prevent incremental dock creep along the Georgian Bay Islands?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, that's totally up to the committee if they wish to add any certain conditions in regards to some sort of stipulation on this. I mean, we don't set precedent. As we know, this is a one-site thing. So, I mean, precedent setting is not to be done in planning. So I don't intend on making that a priority in the future. So if the committee so decides to add additional stipulations to this recommendation of mine, that's more than fine.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I see Member Predko has his online hand up.
Thank
Please
you.
go ahead.
Through you, Chair. Question for the planner. And first of all, thank you for this picture. It's very helpful to see the difference between the existing dock and the proposed dock. And the one item I wanted to just clarify is that the red section that goes north along the shoreline, is that being removed as part of the new docking structure? So you're improving the shoreline as well as reducing the overall square footage of the dock. Okay, thank you. I wanted to just make sure that that was my interpretation. And then the only other question I had was whether, going back to the Cognoscene Association, whether I don't remember seeing any correspondence on this doc, so just wanted to confirm that I didn't miss it. Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you. Member Jarvis, please.
Thank you. I'll just add some colorful history. The last time we had docks this size, probably go back to the early 19th century when the tourist boats were coming up the shore to the hotels. I know this is not a hotel. I would prefer to think that people would build boats to fit the size of docks they have as opposed to the other way around. I see, if my calculations are correct, the dock ramp projection is an increase of 57%, and the finger length difference is 110%. I don't see those as minor. The desirability of this is on behalf of the owner. I don't know of anybody else in the Cognoscene area or even remotely close that have a boat that requires that kind of length for visiting. I just don't see any reason for doing anything like this at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Do we have anybody on? Oh, I see Member Graziano has his hand up. Is that the original one or a new one?
Yeah, that is the original. Disregard, please. Thank you. I've lowered it now. Thank you.
Your Chair, Mr. Cameron, can I just confirm the spelling of your name, please? Okay, thank you.
Okay. If there are no further questions or comments, I would just like to add the comment. I pass that island frequently in the summer. It is en route to McKay Lake, and if there's no boat at the dock, I would have to say that you basically can't see the docks. There's a large rock outcropping that covers the entire front of the island, and whether this unit is 31 meters long or less, I don't think it'll have any visual impact to anybody going past. So with that in mind, and seeing there are no further questions or comments, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Matthews, seconded by Member Predko. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A25-10 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 2 Island 1860 to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the development of a new floating dock facility to allow for access and mooring of the property owner's boat as follows. The maximum dock and ramp projection proposed is 31.4 meters, where permitted is 20 meters. The maximum cumulative dock area proposed is 167.69 square meters, where 160 square meters is permitted. Maximum dock finger length of 21 meters is proposed, where 10 meters is permitted. And maximum cumulative width of the entire dock system of 24 meters, where 20 meters is permitted, subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide a property tax certificate of correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And two, that the proposed new floating dock be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And three, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Thank you. Our next application is A25-11 for 20 Island 2060 Georgian Bay. To the planner, please.
Thank you, and through the chair. The subject property is located on Island 140 or Big Ship Island within Georgian Bay. The property has an area of 4 acres and is within the Cognachine coastal waterfront community. The property currently contains a detached dwelling, a sleeping cabin, a dryland boathouse, and a dock. As with most shoreline residential properties, a 20-meter front yard setback is required. And further, as the property is within the Cognachine coastal waterfront community, there are various provisions regarding dwelling size and location. The existing dwelling is sited at the 20-meter front yard setback mark with a gross floor area of 228.1 square meters. The proposed addition will reduce the front yard setback to 15.09 meters and increase the gross floor area to 264.3 square meters. The applicant has provided an abundance of information giving a detailed depiction of the existing dwelling and the specific area of the proposed addition. The proposed addition is to be constructed in an area which generally affords the conservation of shoreline vegetation and lack of terrain alteration. The proposed addition will be in a location characterized by exposed granite rock with mature vegetation in close proximity. This mature vegetation within the shoreline area will work to shield the addition from the water. The proposed addition will not increase the width or height of the existing dwelling, and therefore the front built form facade of the principal use and the visual integrity of the shoreline area will be unaltered. The owners of the subject property have submitted several photos of the shoreline or view from the canoe. As depicted in the photo display, there will be no hazard or flooding concerns with the proposed addition being located in closer proximity to the water. There's a significant elevation change between the current water's edge and the plateau where the proposed dwelling addition is to be located. Section F.5.10.8.4 of the Township Official Plan speaks to the built form within Cognachine waterfront community. The size and number of buildings combined with their location on site have a direct impact on the visual character of the waterfront community. To protect the visual character of the waterfront community and maintain appropriate balance between natural and built form, the size and number of buildings should generally be proportionate to the size of the lot in which they are located. This is to be controlled by specific width and height requirements within the township zoning bylaw. Both the width and height of the dwelling will remain unchanged, both being within the maximum requirements for residential lots within the Cognachine coastal waterfront community. As shown on the diagram displayed, the existing front facade of the dwelling in accordance with the measurement of lot frontage will be unaltered, leaving the visual character of this property virtually unchanged. Type 1 fish habitat has been identified in the nearshore area north of the proposed dwelling addition. The application does not include any shoreline alteration or in-water works. However, the applicant has submitted a sediment and erosion control plan in support of the addition within the front yard setback. This ensures that the construction of the addition will have no interference on the sensitive area. The recommendations of the report prepared by Sumac Environmental Consulting are to be implemented under the minor variance agreement as stated within the conditions of the recommendation. The committee can either approve or deny any one of the variances being requested. The committee may also defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Planning staff have completed a detailed analysis of the variance to the zoning bylaw being requested and are recommending approval subject to the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Madam Clerk, has there been any correspondence in this application?
One letter was received from Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating building permits will be required, and 3 letters of support were received from Ian and Terry Wilson, John Wright, and Nancy Bennett of Yin Yang Holdings.
Thank you. Is the applicant present, and do they wish to address the committee on this application?
The agent is online, Ms. Danielle Bilodeau.
Okay. Why do I not see them? Oh, okay. Is there anything that the applicant wishes to add to the comments from the planning department?
Hi there. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Danielle Bilodeau from Justin Cherry Design Studio here on behalf of the owners. In case you need it, my address
Sorry,
is...
could you spell your name for us, please?
Oh, sure, yeah. So Danielle is Danielle. And then my last name, Bilodeau, is Bilodeau.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
No problem. And then, yeah, our address is 17 Point Street in Barrie, Ontario. I do have a nice little write-up here, but Andrew kind of touched on everything I wanted to mention. So thank you, Andrew. I'll leave it at that, but I'm happy to answer any comments or questions that anybody has.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the committee on this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And we'll begin with Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the planner, Andrew, you said the width of the building's not going to increase. I'm kind of confused on that. If they're going to put on this addition, how is the width not going to increase? I understand the height, but not the width.
Through the chair, I can bring back up a portion of my presentation of visual representations. It might be easier to see here.
Thank you.
So as shown in this picture here, in accordance with our zoning bylaw, the width is measured by the front lot, or the lot frontage rather, and the frontage is taken from the intersection points where the side lot lines meet the front lot line. So that direct straight line across, as shown where the 23.21 meters highlighted in green is being unchanged.
So the structure actually changes, but from a planning perspective,
the width does not change.
Thank you for that clarity.
That's amazing. Okay. Are there any further questions or comments? All right. Councillor Graziano, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, the chair. To our planning staff, I do see that in the picture, it looks like this is a relatively new building. Not knowing the cottage myself very well, as I've not endeavored to navigate the area. How many variances has this property already received, and does this reflect incremental intensification?
Through the chair, to my knowledge, this is the first variance that the building has received. It was built within the 2014 zoning bylaw, is my understanding. So it was built pretty well exactly at the 20-meter setback. So any further encroachment into the front yard would have required a variance. That's why it's here today.
Follow-up question, if I may, through you, Chair. And going back to the original bird's eye drawing that you had shared, I'm just curious to know why they endeavored to put the extension on the front side of the property, thereby requiring an issue, or thereby impacting setback, and not building it on the back side of it. Is there any topographical issues that arise there that's hindering them from doing that?
Through the chair, maybe Danielle is better suited to answer this. It's my understanding that the addition is a sunroom, so I believe they wanted it in the closest location to the water that would still afford that vegetation preservation in the front yard, but maybe you can touch on that further, Danielle.
Yeah, for sure. So there's actually an existing sunroom at that northern tip. There's 2 stories. So the first story is a sunroom, and they just want to add on to that existing sunroom. So that's why we have to go out further past the 20-meter setback.
Okay, does that answer your question, Member Graziano?
That does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further, there is a question from Member Matthews. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's actually more of a comment, and I'm glad the planner brought up that there was an existing sunroom there before, because I missed that. So the actual width of, even though it's not calculated in the width according to our planner, it's not really that much of an addition to the overall width from the shore. So yeah, so I'm glad that that was brought up from my own perspective anyways. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Predko, seconded by Member Jarvis. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A25-11 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 20 Island 2060 Georgian Bay to facilitate the construction of a sunroom addition as described below. 1, a decrease in minimum front yard setback of 15.09 meters, whereas section 7.3 permits a minimum front yard setback of 20 meters. And 2, an increase in the maximum gross floor area of a dwelling in the Cognasheen Coastal Waterfront Community to 264.3 square meters, where section 7.4.1 permits a gross floor area of 250 square meters. The above noted approvals are subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And 2, that the owner, at their cost, shall enter into a minor variance agreement with the township regarding and registering upon subject lands to implement the recommendations of the erosion sediment control plan and construction mitigation plan prepared by Sumac Environmental Consulting. And 3, that the proposed addition be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And 4, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Our next application is minor variance application A25-12 for 127 Volix Road. To the planner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The property known as 127 Volix Road is currently comprised of 0.31 hectares or 0.77 acres with a frontage on 6 Mile Lake of approximately 126 meters. Access to the property is from Volix Road, which is a private road that crosses the 6 Mile Lake Marina property. According to MPAC, there is a 103.31 square meter single detached dwelling that was constructed in 1984, a 30.19 square meter detached garage constructed in 1985, and a 53.14 square meter boathouse constructed in 1992. The dwelling is recognized as being legal non-complying based on the age of the structure. In April 2021, the applicant applied for a building permit for the construction of a second-story addition to the existing dwelling. It was determined upon submission that a pre-application consultation would be required, as it was apparent that a planning application may be required to achieve the desired construction. On April 28, 2021, a pre-consultation memo was completed and forwarded to the applicant, indicating that a minor variance would be required as the increase in gross floor area and the increase in height were not in compliance with Section 4.11E of Zoning Bylaw 2014-75. An email was sent to the applicant on December 15, 2021, advising of the minor variance process and the application submission requirements. An application for a minor variance was received by the township on January 25, 2022. However, it was never heard as more information was required in order to move forward. In May 2024, planning staff were reviewing open building permit files to assist the building department and to inquire if the applicant was moving forward with any required planning applications, and if not, the file would be closed. Upon visiting the property, the Deputy Chief Building Official noted that the second-story addition had been completed without the benefit of a building permit being issued and proceeded with issuing a stop work order in order to comply. Staff met with the owner and advised that a new minor variance application would be required in order to bring the property into compliance. Photos of the before and after of the property were posted on the contractor's website who did the construction of the second-story addition. The existing dwelling was recognized as a single-family dwelling, being only 1 story. As noted, the owner proceeded to incorporate a second-story addition without a building permit being issued. In order to enlarge the single-story structure, a minor variance was required but was never heard by the Committee of Adjustment, and the owner proceeded to construct the addition without the benefit of the minor variance and a building permit. The property is on a point of land with the peninsula made up of part of the 6 Mile Lake Marina and 2 residential lots. The subject property has a substantial amount of mature vegetation, providing a privacy buffer between the separate parcels. For applications to extend a legal nonconforming use under subsection 45(2), the consideration is to be based upon both desirability for development of the property in question and the impact on the surrounding area. When applying these tests, only the proposed expansion may be evaluated for undue adverse impacts. The intent and purpose of the official plan is not a relevant consideration when applying the test under subsection 45(2). In order to refuse the application, the undue adverse impacts of the proposed expansion must be demonstrated by objective evidence and must be sufficient to override the property owner's right to reasonable flexibility, evolution, and expansion. The owner of the property has met with both the planning department and the building department to discuss the process, and it was determined through these consultations that the variances previously applied for would still be required in order to recognize the development in a way that best meets the intent of the 6 Mile Lake Waterfront Community Guidelines. Staff are recommending approval of the variances requested, subject to the recommended conditions. I've also asked Kaylee Nicholson, Chief Building Official, to come in if you have any questions in regards to that.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, has there been correspondence in this application?
1 letter was received from Kelly Nicholson, Chief Building Official, with stating an ongoing compliance issue, permits required and septic system capacity to be reviewed at the application stage.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant present, and do they wish to add to the planner's comments?
Yes, I'm here. My name is Michael Corbett. Address is 127 Bollocks Road. Deb has handled it very well. Thank you.
Okay, so no further comment. Is there any member of the public in attendance that would like to address the committee on this application? Okay, seeing none present or online, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And let's begin with Member Jarvis.
Thank you. Get back to the question and through the mayor. Appreciate that. Just to the planner, in your comments, you noted that the contractor obviously moved ahead without a permit. I guess that's not unusual, but is that a contractor whose name we can record as being somebody who doesn't necessarily like to follow the rules, and for future reference?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would be up to the building department, not the planning department.
Yeah, it looks like Kaylee's here. Maybe she can help us.
I don't think we need to get into that.
No. For future consideration. Anyway, that's my only comment. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Jarvis. Are there any member Predco, please?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. A question for our CBO. I'm so glad she's here. Do we know, did the contractor act as the agent for the homeowner in this instance? And was the homeowner aware of the lack of approvals and building permit, or is it as an oversight on the owner's part, or do you know how this situation evolved to where we are today?
Through the chair, I'm unsure of, because I do not have the application in front of me, of who the actual applicant was. Normally homeowners are aware, and it's their legal right, whether they're whether they're the applicant of the application or not, that all actual applications and building permits have been approved to move forward with this.
Okay. And subsequent to that, if the minor variance isn't approved today, removal of the second story would take place, is that correct?
Well, they would have the right to appeal, so it would go from there. And then after that, if they could not get any type of compliance with the zoning bylaw, we would in turn have to proceed with the removal of the structure.
Yeah, so they would apply to the OLT and move forward from there.
As
Right. Okay, yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions or comments? I'd just like to ask Ms. Nicholson the reverse of that. You know, if in fact the the committee is in favor of approval as recommended by planning, is there a process that the building department goes through in order to ensure that the construction is there, meets the building code and is safe for the applicants and that sort of thing? You know, what happens then?
To you, the chair, we have already gone through a portion of compliance with this structure, meaning court. And yes, so obviously at some points, whether that's removal of interior materials or exposure of foundations and footings, exposure of plumbing, that will all be part of the building permit process.
Okay, so following your inspection, if it meets the building code requirements,
Yep.
building permit is issued.
And then we go from there about ensuring compliance with the building code.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. If there are no further questions, there is a question from Member Schmidt, please.
I guess obviously process is in question here, no doubt about it. I did have an opportunity to speak with planning prior to the meeting and asked what lens is it that we're supposed to look at this application that's currently in front of us right now. I drive by that property a number of times and I didn't even see anything that's currently there now or what was there before, way it's situated. I think if this was a minor variance application that was in front of us and there hadn't been a hammer brought to the property or a steel saw fired up, I think it would be supported in this room. But obviously I know the struggle is that it's already done. So I rely on our chief building inspector to follow the appropriate processes. But I think what's there, if it was a blank sheet of paper, we'd be saying, let's go ahead with this application, I would think. So that's my only comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, again, seeing no questions or comments, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Schmidt and seconded by Member Rivet. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A25-12 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 127 Volix Road to recognize a second-story addition that was constructed without the benefit of a building permit on the existing legal non-complying one-story wood-sided dwelling as described below. With maximum increase of GFA on the existing dwelling proposed is 42.34%, whereas permitted is 25%. And the maximum increase in height of the existing dwelling requested is 2.6 meters, with a maximum height of 6.6 meters, where permitted is 1 meter to a maximum of 6 meters. Subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. 2, that the proposed existing second-story addition to the one-story wood-sided dwelling be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And 3, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 6 months from the date of the decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. And I just have a question on that for Ms. Nicholson. This last condition here is saying that a building permit must be obtained within 6 months. Does that mean that you have to complete your inspection and all that sort of thing before 6 months?
To Chair, no, it means it needs to be issued. So they need to apply and the permit needs to be issued.
Oh, oh, okay.
Right.
Obtain it. Okay, very good.
Right.
All right, thank you. Having cleared that up, I would ask all those that are in favor of approving the application, please signify by raising your hand. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is minor variance A25-13 for 17,548 Georgian Bay Shore. To the planner, please.
Through the chair, the subject property has an area of 8,142 square meters and a frontage of 107.3 meters on Georgian Bay. The property is forested and granite rock is a prominent feature. The lands are located between Bone Island and McKay Lake Conservation Reserve. A detached dwelling with 2 attached decks, a freestanding deck with a gazebo, and a dock occupy the lands. The lands are designated waterfront within the Palisade Bay East Bone Island Coastal Waterfront Community and Zone Shoreline Residential Type 2, Exception 43. The shoreline contains Type 2 fish habitat, and the lands are identified as having moderate to high archaeological potential, with majority of the lands being within an extreme wildfire hazard rating. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the expansion of a legal non-complying deck on the front of the dwelling, as well as a roof overhang on a portion of a second deck, which increases the gross floor area of the building, and permit a gazebo at a reduced setback from the high water mark. The variances being sought are as follows. 1, the expansion and reconstruction of a deck which will reduce the front yard from 12.5 meters to 10.4 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw permits the expansion or reconstruction provided the front yard is not reduced or floor area increased within a required yard. 2, a deck that projects 9.6 meters into the front yard, whereas it currently projects 7.5 into the front yard, and the zoning bylaw permits a projection of 4 meters into the front yard. 3, a gross floor area of 233.26 square meters, whereas the shoreline residential type 2 exception 43 zone in section 6.5, table 6.4, permits a maximum gross floor area of 25 square meters per 1,000 square meters of lot area for a total of 203.55 square meters to a maximum of 325 square meters. And whereas the zoning bylaw permits the expansion of the gross floor area by 40%, being 83.16 square meters for a dwelling within 10 to 15 meters of the high water mark. And 4, a gazebo having a setback of 4.1 meters from the high water mark, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a minimum setback of 5 meters. One deck is located off of the main floor with an area of 39.76 square meters and is being expanded by 9 square meters for a total area of 48.77 square meters. The second deck, located off the basement floor, is being covered. The roof overhang is 1.98 meters, and therefore this area is included in the calculation of gross floor area. To confirm, the roof overhang has an area of 25.34 square meters. The gazebo located on the freestanding deck near the shoreline has already been constructed and has an area of 9.3 square meters and a height of 2.75 meters. The variances pertaining to the gazebo and roof overhang are evaluated against the 4 tests under subsection 45(1) of the Planning Act, whereas the deck expansion is evaluated against the 2 tests under section 45(2) of the Planning Act. Objectives of the waterfront area in the district's official plan include, but are not limited to, protecting the ecological features and functions as well as exceptional visual aesthetics, encouraging the conservation of the overall landscape, including but not limited to tree cover and vegetation, in order to protect the resilience and integrity of ecosystems, ensuring the character of new development is reflective of or compatible with existing development, etc. The district official plan is silent on accessory buildings and structures. The gazebo is located on a freestanding deck, which appears to have been constructed in or prior to 2008, and is located on top of granite rock. The roof overhang does not impede the objectives of the waterfront area. Within the township's official plan, the Palisade Bay Eastbourne Island Coastal Waterfront Community has policies pertaining to boathouses and boat ports, and does not contain specific policies for other accessory buildings or structures. It also states development should be compatible with the character of the surrounding area, the size and number of buildings, combined with their location on a site, which have a direct impact on the visual character, as well as the maximum height of the main building shall be limited to 8 meters and no more than 1.5 stories. The gazebo is the only building near the shoreline, and the roof overhang is located above the basement, not contributing to the height of the dwelling. Note that the zoning does not permit a dryland boathouse or boat port on the lands. In accordance with the township's definition of gross floor area, the area below the proposed roof overhang, which extends 1.98 meters from the dwelling wall and has a total area of 25.34 square meters, is included in the calculation of the dwelling's gross floor area. The existing dwelling has a gross floor area of 206.92 square meters, whereas the zone permits a maximum gross floor area of 203.55 square meters. The roof overhang results in a total gross floor area of 233.26 square meters. Staff understand the intent of the area-specific zone limiting gross floor area was to assist with ensuring development is compatible with the character of the surrounding area and to ensure the size of a dwelling is suitable for the lot on which it is located. The roof overhang is covering an existing deck and is not creating additional living space, rather providing a covered entrance to the basement walkout and providing some protection from the elements. The zoning bylaw permits one gazebo to be located in the front yard of a lot in the shoreline residential zone, provided the gazebo does not exceed 15 square meters of floor area, has a height of 3.5 meters, and is set back a minimum of 5 meters from the high water mark. This gazebo has an area of 9.3 square meters and a height of 2.75 meters, however, is set back 4.1 meters from the high water mark. As the deck is a legal non-complying structure, its associated variances are subject to the two tests, being whether the application is desirable for appropriate development on the subject property, and whether the application will result in undue adverse impacts on the surrounding properties and neighborhood. Only the proposed expansion may be evaluated for undue adverse impacts. The expansion is limited to 9 square meters, occurs inland facing the shoreline activity area, provides access around the dwelling to the rear yard, whereas currently there is limited access from the front due to uneven terrain. Side yard setbacks are being maintained. No vegetation or trees need to be removed to accommodate the expansion, and lot coverage will be less than 3%, whereas 5% is permitted. Staff have completed a detailed analysis contained within the associated report and are recommending approval. The committee can either approve or deny the variances pertaining to the gazebo and roof overhang. For the committee to deny variances pertaining to the deck expansion, the undue adverse impacts of the proposed expansion must be demonstrated by objective evidence and must be sufficient to override the property owner's right to reasonable flexibility and evolution. The committee can defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, has there been any correspondence in this application?
Yes, one letter is received from Kelly Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating building permits will be required, and 4 letters of support were received from Glenn and Beth Heinsman, Daniel Pinot, and Carrie Anderson, Joseph Castaldi, and Tim Akers.
Thank you. Is the applicant present, and do they wish to address the committee?
For the record, this every time. My name is Victoria Hoffman, Flow Drawings and Design, 3 Violet Drive. I'm here on behalf of Glenn Leis, who is beside me as well. Shania has summarized our application and kind of clearly identified what we're looking to do. Just to kind of go over a couple quick points here. The open deck, the idea, it's a raised, the main floor of the dwelling is obviously up on what would be a second story. The basement isn't a full basement. Part of it's on piers, part of it's been enclosed, and then depending on the depth of the rock behind it. So the main floor is the upper story there. So essentially the open deck, they're just looking to kind of square off what they already have to get some deck space up there, and then also get the access along the side. The 4-meter projection rule, as it's taken to the 20-meter that would be outlined in the bylaw. Our current dwelling setback is 14.4 and our deck is 10.4. I understand it's taken to the 20-meter, but when you look at it in project, that kind of perspective, that's originally how I had thought about it, so I'm just mentioning it. The covered deck itself, the deck already exists, we're just looking to put a roof on it. It's to, obviously provide a covered entrance into the lower level, but also some curb appeal. The existing facade as it is right now looks to be quite a tall building, just the way that it sits on the rock. And then the gazebo is something that kind of came up further through working with the planners, just because originally we didn't realize that it would be considered a gazebo just with the removable top. But because it is, which is why part of the reason we're here today, it was kind of the location was determined by that existing deck that was there prior to Glenn purchasing it. And I'm here to answer any questions, but Glenn just has a couple quick comments he'd like to add as well.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm really happy to say that we have support from our neighbors. Some of the support was brutally honest. The existing cottage was described as a eyesore and that it looked like a barracks. So this is why we'll be adding more natural wood finishes to the front of the roof peak and changing the color from its current bright cinder block gray to something darker so it stands out less and blends into the landscape. Also, the changes, as mentioned, has a lot to do with functionality and I'd say safety as well. Much of the increase to the size of the upper deck is to allow ingress egress from the side to the back of the cottage. This is a safety issue, as without this, as the cottage is now, there's only one way down to the cottage from the main entrance to ground level in case of emergency. And from a functionality perspective, like many properties in the area, ours too is very rocky and somewhat steep, so deck space is essential for the safe enjoyment of the property. With regards to the gazebo, given that it doesn't have a permanent roof, it's a tent roof. I didn't think it would qualify as a permanent gazebo. My intention was to simply get something up to provide some UV protection while we're enjoying the shore, given that my wife was being advised by a dermatologist to be careful. So my apologies, I didn't mean to break any rules.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the committee on this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And let's begin with Member Jarvis.
How unusual. Thank you. This is the chair. A quick question. My observation is, and it is really just an observation, is you are taking an inset portion of that deck and just basically filling it in on that, what was that, northwest facing part of the deck. You're reducing some of the deck in the front, the upper deck. Is that correct?
No.
It looked like it in the plans I'm looking at. The deck extends across the front in one plan.
That would be the lower level.
Hmm?
That would be the lower level that you're looking at.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is the one we're trying to cut. We're looking to cover, and then the upper one, it is getting squared off, and then it bumps out just to wrap around the side.
Right. Yes. My only problem here is we don't have an ability to get out to this property to have a look. And as we've talked about before, observations as prefer the view from the canoe. While you did give us some good pictures, and I appreciate that, none of them is from the water.
Okay.
And my concern would be the fact that that deck is high and an obvious situation in many areas in the Georgian Bay and in the inland lakes. I'm wondering how much more of a issue that might be from the standpoint of how it looks from the water. Again, it's an observation. I would like to have been able to get out to have a look at this. That's to the building department. I don't think it's to you guys.
I might have.
But other than that, I don't see too many issues. Thank you.
Okay. I typically do take some photos from the boat, so I don't, maybe if I could send them to you, or maybe they would have been in the initial pack submission. I'm not sure, but.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from committee members? I just have one question for the planner in the roof of the gazebo. If it is, I wasn't aware that a tent or a cloth roof would make that part of the make the gazebo part of the GFA. Does that also apply to retractable roofs?
Through the chair, yes, as long as the structure meets the definition of gazebo, staff consider it to be a gazebo.
And the description of that gazebo, is it the 4 posts vertical, or is there some definition as to how the roof is constructed?
Through the chair, I believe our definition of gazebo does not mention the construction, but I will read it to you. Just give me 1 second. Gazebo means a freestanding roofed accessory structure that is open, screened, or glassed and which is utilized for recreational purposes in conjunction with the main building, but not including a sauna.
Amazing. So even a pergola then is considered a structure. You learn something every week, right?
Lesson for the day.
It is, yeah. That is definitely it for the day. Okay, Member Matthews, you had a question?
I did, thank you, Mr. Chair, and maybe it's, Member Jarvis and I are drinking the same Cognachine water, but I'm looking at the existing building, and to Steve's point earlier, it looks like the deck actually wrapped around to the right as you're looking at the drawing. And I understand you're going to square that off, and then there'll be a roof over it, but it looks like you will be eliminating some deck. Is that not correct?
Can I ask what you guys are looking at? Which?
This is, well, it's page 187 of the big package. It's one of your drawings, Victoria. Existing building layout.
Item number 7F, maybe?
Oh, you're looking at the walkway on the right side?
Well, it's existing raised deck. And it looks, and then there's the chimney, and then it looks like it sweeps around to the right towards
Oh, I'm sorry.
2
Yeah,
bay windows.
yeah, it's not coming across the front anymore. We're putting a roof there instead.
So that
Yeah.
part of the deck will be eliminated.
Correct, yeah.
You're sort of going to put it over the other side and back,
Mhm.
and then just a roof.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, that I can understand. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Matthews and seconded by Member Graziano. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the following variances requested under minor variance application A25-13. 1, the expansion and reconstruction of a deck which will reduce the front yard from 12.5 meters to 10.4 meters, whereas section 411A only permits the expansion and reconstruction provided in the front yard, providing the front yard is not reduced or floor area increased within a required yard. 2, a deck that projects 9.6 meters into the front yard, where it currently projects 7.5 meters in the front yard, and section 4.20A permits a projection of 4 meters into the front yard. Number 3, a gross floor area of 233.26 square meters, whereas SR 2-43 exception zone in section 6.5 table 6.4 permits a maximum gross floor area of 25 square meters per 1,000 square meters of lot area, for a total of 203.55 square meters to a maximum of 325 square meters. And whereas section 411E permits the expansion of gross floor area by 40% or 83.16 square meters for a dwelling within 10 to 15 meters of the high water mark, provided it complies with the requirements of the applicable zone. And 4, a gazebo having a setback of 4.1 meters from a high water mark, whereas section 4.1.12.5A permits a minimum setback of 5 meters. And subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And 2, that the development be substantially and proportionally in conformity with the decisions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And 3, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Our next application is minor variance application A25-14 for 20 Arthur Island. To the planner, please.
Thank you, and through the chair. The subject property is located on Island 57, commonly known as Arthur Island within Georgian Bay. The property has an area of 3.06 acres, a frontage of 118 meters, and is located within the Cognachine coastal waterfront community. Previously vacant, the property was developed with a single detached dwelling and a dock in 2023. Lower water levels on the Georgian Bay have now caused insufficient water depths at the dock's approved location and length. The application proposes shifting the dock eastward and lengthening the existing hinged and fixed ramps to gain adequate water depth for the docking of the property owner's watercraft. In order to develop the property with the dock as proposed, the applicant is seeking relief from the zoning bylaw to construct a dock with a greater projection than permitted in section 4.1.13.2 of the zoning bylaw. The purpose and intent of the provisions regarding dock projection within the Cognachine coastal waterfront community is to preserve the visual character and maintain the navigable waterways, as this community largely relies on watercraft for the access of most properties. The existing approved dock projects from a small rock outcrop at the projection of 20 meters, being compliant with the zoning bylaw. This location was the best possible location to reach adequate water depth within the provisions of the zoning bylaw. The proposed dock will project from a recessed portion of the shoreline in contrast to the existing dock projecting from the outcrop. As such, the visual projection will be lesser, however, the numerical projection value will be greater. The nearshore area within this location offers the greatest possible water depth. If the existing dock were to be moved to the location proposed, adequate water depth could not be achieved. The development of the dock will not alter the existing approved shoreline character of this property, as the projection will mimic that of the approved dock. Throughout Georgian Bay, generally where a dock and ramp exists, the maximum permitted projection is 26 meters. This increased projection is for the purpose of providing the property owners adequate docking ability to access the island property. The view of the shoreline is not anticipated to be intensified as a result of the construction of the proposed dock. The floating dock structure is unchanged from the approved plans, the only alterations being the extension of the fixed and hinge ramps connecting the floating dock structure to the shoreline. The proposed projection is not foreseen to create any negative interference with navigation of waterways, as the proposed projection will mimic that of the approved dock projecting into open water. The presence of docks within safe and accessible locations is crucial for the provision of access to the subject property. In the location proposed, slight shielding is provided by the nearby rock outcrop, and adequate water depth can be achieved to access the lands. As highlighted in blue on the right side of the dock, water depth measurements were taken to ensure that the appropriate water depth could be achieved, preventing the need for any further access alterations. The committee can either approve or deny the variance being requested. The committee may also defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to the decision. Planning staff have completed a detailed analysis of the variance to the zoning bylaw being proposed and are recommending approval subject to the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, has there been any correspondence in this application?
One letter was received from Kelly Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating building permits will be required but has no concerns with the application. 5 letters of support were received from Denise Walker, Jim Lizowski, and Suzanne Bennett, Kevin Walker, Lauren Cameron, and Suzanne Lyons and John Swick.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant or their agent present? And if so, do they wish to address the committee? Please step forward and identify yourself and your address, please.
Yes, my name is Armin Grigaitis, A-R-M-I-N, last name G-R-I-G-A-I-T-I-S. And my address is, what is my address? 1172 Minnow Bay Road, Honey Harbor. Thank you very much for entertaining us today and the application. And I believe our planner did a great job explaining the dynamics of it. I just wanted to add a couple of things. One of the things we've talked about in the past is that there's a difference between Honey Harbor and Cognachine of 6 meters, which is allowable. So in Honey Harbor, which is only about a kilometer south of this property, you're allowed a 26-meter long dock and ramp projection. And for some reason in the 2014-75 bylaw, I believe there was consensus from Cognachine and from most people along the shore that the extra 6 meters was required at that time. 2013 was the last time the water was as low as it is right now. And so there was a request at that time that there was a change to allow the extra length, which was required to prevent people from, or to avoid having to apply for variances for many other docks. And so for whatever reason, Cognachine still has a 20-meter limit where Honey Harbor has 26 meters. We're asking for a 24-meter projection. So if the 26-meter provision had been observed in Cognachine, we wouldn't have to come today. But we're happy to be here. The area proposed for the dock is located, it's concurrent with the construction road. We've been working on building the cottage over the last year and a bit, and we had to build a trail from the shoreline to be able to get the equipment and materials to the building site, which is otherwise inaccessible. And it's a nice little trail that goes in behind. You can't see any of it from the water other than the access point, which is right beside where the proposed dock location is going to go. So it was the owner's wish that they didn't really want to disturb any, the rock, which is was the original application location for the dock, or approved location for the dock, would require some stone steps or some kind of a ramp or something going up an otherwise pretty pristine piece of Georgian Bay bedrock, and they didn't want to do that. That's one of their favorite swimming areas, and they grew up on Georgian Bay and love swimming right off the rocks. They don't want to jump off the dock. So for a number of reasons, it makes sense to move the dock a little bit eastward into this cove. But of course, because it's a sloping flat shoreline there, similar to a Pebble Beach, it requires a little bit longer dock alignment to accommodate the boat water depth. That's, yeah, I think, and I guess the side benefit is it's more sheltered from the west winds in that tucked in location. And it also, the nearest neighbor is almost a kilometer across the bay. You know, so it's not going to be obtrusive to anybody anyway, but it's less visible to neighbors in the new location. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the committee on this application? Okay, seeing no one present or online, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And we'll begin with Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Grigaitis, thank you for those great drawings. I wonder who the lucky guy was out there measuring in January with the water depth. But I'm looking at your drawing A1, and I'm still trying to grasp where the 20 meters versus the 24 meter that you're applying for. Because So you've so kindly done it in feet, which I really can understand much better, but just wonder if you could help me with that.
So
Yeah. Right. So you're applying for a variance for 24 meters versus 20 meters, right?
The 20 meters is allowed.
Yeah, so where is this? Is it?
Well, it's
from the okay, so I'm seeing 46 feet, 22 feet, 34 feet, plus the width of the T, which is
so from the
68, 88. It's like 100 feet almost, right? Which would be
110.
So
what it looks like on this drawing, but part of it is on that. Providing that
Through the chair,
well,
just to
it's not on
provide.
the land on the high water mark. It is on the current water mark, right? I have no objection to this, and I fully understand that with the water levels going where they are, the numbers just don't add up to me. That's all.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why we drew it the way we did either, to be honest with you. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I apologize for that. Jim, maybe you can help.
Through the chair to member Matthews, we recognize the wrong end.
Microphone, please. Microphone. Microphone, please. Microphone.
You have to turn it on. Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah, I believe the current watermark is a defined term.
Through the chair, that's correct. I just wanted to clarify that dock projection isn't measured from the high water mark, which would be that 177.4. It's measured from the current watermark.
Okay, so that would take off a good hunk of that 46, the first section of 46 feet. Thank you for that clarity.
And just for clarity on that, if you measure the existing watermark or right now the shoreline profile, and you approve the application, does anything change as the water level changes? So we're not referring to a fixed point, which is the high water mark. We're picking a random point, which happens to be where it is today.
Through the chair, and maybe Derek can help clarify this, it's my understanding that we approved the current watermark the day of the approval. If that current watermark moves, the dock projection may move with that watermark as it moves in and out.
Okay. Yep. All right. We're all on the
Yeah,
same page.
through the chair to the committee, and staff have certainly looked at the dock provisions in the zoning bylaw at great length. And it's our firm belief that what the zoning bylaw contemplated when it was created in 2014 was that it contemplated that as water levels change, that the entire dock structure, dock and ramp, the owners would bring them in and out, matching the current water line of the day. And that doesn't always reflect, I think, the reality of how docks are constructed and sometimes fixed to the shoreline, but it appears that's what may have been intended. So something to consider for the future in terms of, when we redraft the bylaw, but that's what we're working with right now.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead, Jim.
Through the chair to the members.
Could you identify yourself, sir? I don't think we got your name. And
Jim Oakley.
Jim Oakley. So I do the applications for Armin, and Armin does most of the presentation to the committee. But the current watermark at that location doesn't change drastically horizontally because of the steepness of the shoreline as compared to an example, maybe Quarry Island, where if the water drops 3 feet, it can change a huge amount. At that particular location, though, it's not significant, the horizontal movement of the current watermark.
Good point. All right.
Yes, and if I may add, There was considerable discussion during the previous formation of zoning bylaws, as some of you will remember. And at one time, it was supposed to be projected from the high water mark, but of course, on a low water year, you'd be out of water pretty quickly, and and that's really the issue. Is it like for a decent sized boat, if you got a 24-foot limestone or something like that, which is a good Georgian Bay sized boat, you're going to be drawing about 3 feet of water to the bottom of the lower unit, and sometimes a very expensive duo prop propeller. And so you kind of need a little bit of leeway. You almost really need 6 feet of water in those locations to be able to be good for the high water and low water, because we've actually seen for all most of the people here are very familiar with Georgian Bay, of course. And but I mean, we've seen the biggest one-day shift that I've ever seen, which happened probably in about 1980, was a 5-foot difference in elevation. We had a crazy big wind from the east, which dropped all the water, and we were working in the bush on a project, and by the time we came out, the wind had switched around 180 degrees, and it was 5 feet taller. When we went back to the marina, there were boats that were floating on top of fixed docks, and boats were, ropes were ripped off and everything. So anyway, I'm getting into a longer discussion than I had intended, but I think there's more discussion needed. One of the reasons that we're big advocates for floating, like robust floating docks with steel pontoons and so on, is because you do have to move them from time to time, as the planner had indicated. And I think that was the original intention, was that, certainly Go Home Bay or many places in Cognachine where you've got a very simple homemade floating dock with a ramp, and you got 2 pins in the rock, and you just, wherever, there's all of these different sets of holes all the way along, where depending on the water level, right? So you're adjusting. So certainly the floating docks with the ramps are a better solution. But at times, if you're in a really, like this area does get a lot of crazy, if you get a southwest wind there, you can have 2-meter waves in a pretty short order. So whatever you're going to put there, you better have it anchored well. And part of that is anchoring it to the shore properly with either steel pilings or some kind of a crib or whatever that's going to not give up when the wind blows. So anyway, I'm getting kind of philosophical here, but definitely we need to have more discussions about improving the dock provisions, in my opinion. And one of the things I'd like to have the committee and the planning department consider is why the difference between Honey Harbor and Cognachine. It's the same shoreline, subject to the same water level fluctuations, and we'd save the committee and the township a whole lot of time and dollars if we just applied the Honey Harbor provisions to Cognachine. Yeah. Maybe Member Matthews and I and Member Jarvis and I can talk about that, because they're heavily involved in the Cognachine Association. But I don't know if it was inadvertent when it happened, because I remember there was general consensus at the consultative meetings that we had. But then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, when the bylaw was printed, there was 6 meters missing on the dock provision for Cognachine. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you both very much. I understand there's no member of the public that has any questions or comments. Any further questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Jarvis and seconded by Member Predko. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A25-14 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 20 Island 2075 Georgian Bay to facilitate the construction of a dock as described below. One, permit permit a maximum dock projection of 24 meters, whereas section 4.113 allows for a maximum projection of 20 meters. The above noted approval is subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. 2, that the proposed dock be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And 3, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Thank you all.
Our next and final application for today is minor variance application A25-15 for 2163 Harrison Trail. To the planner, please.
Through the chair, the subject property has an area of 5,028 square meters with a frontage of 45.78 meters on 12 Mile Bay. The lands are developed with a detached dwelling, sleeping cabin, 2 sheds, and a dock. The lands slope down toward the bay and are densely forested. Granite rock outcrops are present throughout the property and forms a dominant feature of the shoreline. The lands are designated waterfront and zoned shoreline residential type 1. The shoreline contains type 2 fish habitat, and the lands are identified as having moderate to high archaeological potential and partially within a moderate wildfire hazard rating. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the expansion of a legal non-complying dwelling and attached deck, as well as a shed with a reduced front and side yard setback. The variances being sought are 1, an increase of 60.78 square meters to the gross floor area of the dwelling for a total gross floor area of 137.58 square meters, whereas the zoning bylaw permits an expansion of 19.2 square meters for a total gross floor area of 96 square meters. 2, an increase of 11.58 meters to the width of the dwelling for a total width of 18.9 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw permits an increase of 6 meters for a total width of 13.32 meters. 3, a deck expansion of 19.1 square meters within a required front yard and within a front yard setback, and with a front yard setback of 3.6 meters, whereas the current deck has a front yard setback of 3.8 meters, and the zoning bylaw permits the reconstruction and expansion provided the front yard is not reduced and the expansion is not within the required yard. 4, a deck that projects 16.4 meters into the required front yard, whereas a projection of 16.2 meters currently exists, and the zoning bylaw permits a projection of 4 meters into the required front yard. 5, a shed located 0.3 meters from the side lot line, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a minimum of 5 meters from the side lot line. And 6, a shed with a front yard setback of 4.8 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a 20-meter setback. The variances pertaining to the shed are to be evaluated on the 4 tests under subsection 45(1) of the Planning Act. The variances pertaining to the deck and dwelling are to be evaluated on the 2 tests under subsection 45(2) of the Planning Act. The district official plan also states that new development should generally have a physical character similar to or compatible with existing in terms of density, lot sizes, maximum building heights, and minimum setbacks to ensure compatibility with existing development, and is silent on accessory buildings, referring to policies on such to the municipal official plans. The township's official plan states that standards shall be established in an implementing zoning bylaw respecting the location, size, and bulk of accessory uses. The waterfront designation requires an appropriate setback from the high water mark, identified as being 20 meters with the exception of permitted accessory shoreline structures and marine facilities. The plan states, where the 20-meter setback cannot be met, then a lesser setback may be considered through a variance to the zoning bylaw and subject to site plan control. The shed is not used for human habitation, has an area of 8.92 square meters, and although it cannot accommodate watercraft, it is used similarly to a boathouse in that it stores boating equipment. To reiterate, the applicant is requesting that the shed be permitted to have a 0.3 meter setback from the nearest side lot line, whereas a minimum setback of 5 meters is required, and a front yard setback of 4.8 meters, whereas 20 meters is required. The intent of the front yard requirement is to limit the number of accessory buildings visible from the shoreline by only permitting those related to the water, such as a boathouse, in the front yard. The intent of a 5-meter side yard on a waterfront property is to provide sufficient space between the building and the lot line to allow for safe maintenance and avoid trespassing, prevent privacy concerns, ensure stormwater runoff is not falling onto neighboring properties, and to limit the visual impact of development on our water bodies. The building can be maintained and accessed without the need for trespassing due to its rather small footprint. Privacy should not be a concern as the building is used for storage and surrounded by mature trees, and the shed appears to be approximately 18 meters from buildings on the neighboring property to the east. The shed is also the only accessory building within 20 meters of the high water mark, and as mentioned previously, used similarly to a boathouse. The applicant has informed staff that the shed is used to store boating equipment, including the boat's battery, which is why they require it to be in close proximity to the dock where it remains practical. Considering the terrain of the property and vegetation surrounding the building, which functions as an undersized boathouse, staff are of the opinion the proposal is in keeping with the interests of the community and does not introduce an element that is undesirable for the residential use of the land. The tests for an application for permission to expand are 1, whether the application is desirable for appropriate development on the subject property, and 2, whether the application will result in undue adverse impacts on the surrounding properties and neighborhood. When applying these tests, only the proposed expansion may be evaluated. Staff note the following. The minimum required interior side yard of 5 meters is being exceeded on both sides, being 17.96 meters and 8.58 meters. The height of the dwelling and the floor area of the second story remain same. Expansion into the side yards does not require blasting. Development will result in a lot coverage of 4%, whereas 7% is permitted. The expansion of the deck on the west side is limited to a width of 1 meter and abuts the proposed porch addition. On the west side of the dwelling, no trees need to be removed to accommodate the expansion, and the topography is rather flat. The applicant has advised that only a few trees will need to be removed, which abut the east side of the dwelling and are shown in the site photos provided. The deck expansion will facilitate the relocation of the stairs, which currently abut the east side of the dwelling, where the addition is proposed. Compliance with the minimum opening elevation of 178.3 meters CGD is being achieved, as the proposed additions will have a minimum opening elevation of 180.9. Further consideration may be had for the existing waterfront development on Harrison Trail. Many properties on this road have been redeveloped, with dwellings having a gross floor area in excess of 1,900 square feet, some of which exceed 2,500 square feet, and all of which remain in close proximity to 12 Mile Bay. Planning staff have completed a detailed analysis of the proposal contained within the associated report and are recommending approval. The committee can either approve or deny the variances related to the shed. For the committee to deny the variances pertaining to the dwelling, the undue adverse impacts of the proposed expansion must be demonstrated by objective evidence and must be sufficient to override the property owner's right to reasonable flexibility, evolution, and expansion. The committee can defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, has there been correspondence on this application?
One letter was received from Kelly Nicholson, Chief Building Official, stating building permits will be required and a permit for a new septic.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant or the applicant agent present, and do you wish to address the committee? Please come forward.
And identify the dog.
Yeah, we. Okay. We'd like to know the name of the dog.
Beth, Doug, and Maggie. And she's a Woodle, and she's 10 years old.
Oh.
So I think Shania did a great job of presenting the facts. The only additional...
Sorry, can I get your name?
Oh, sorry, Beth Christopher.
Beth Christopher.
And Doug Christopher.
Okay.
Yeah. The only additional information we can provide is more from a personal perspective in why we are looking to expand on both sides and the amount of space that we have. Right now, obviously, our cottage is very small, and we have space in our dining for a table for 4. We can add chairs, And we have 2 adult children now who are bringing partners and starting to grow. So we know we need to expand. The sunroom will allow us to provide a larger dining table for dining and games and that kind of thing, plus a sectional for more seating. And then on the other side is where we are intending to put our primary bedroom with a powder room and ensuite, because currently we're upstairs for our primary and we're getting to the age where we just don't want to be walking up and downstairs through the night. So that's the personal perspective of why we need to do all of this, or feel we need to.
I might add, our current washroom is right off the kitchen and makes for a little bit of uncomfortable discussion in the morning with guests. Everyone needs to, anonymously use the washroom, and that's very difficult.
Yeah. So. Okay. So yeah, in our addition, it does include a main bathroom, and then our primary is what that one side addition is for. So other than that, just questions we're available to answer.
Okay, well, thank you for that, and please stand by if there are any questions from the committee. I don't see anyone here from the public. Do we have somebody online that from the public that wishes to address the committee? Seeing none, I will close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And I'd like to begin with Member Predko.
Thank you for recognizing me, Chair.
Yeah.
A very quick question, just to confirm through the planner that currently the shed that is within the side yard setback, there's no other development on the neighbor's side. It's not interfering with any other use from that. So it's not really posing a problem where it is currently.
Through the chair, I did not see any other structures in close proximity to that shed.
And I can answer to that their cottage and there is on the opposite side, the far side of their property.
Yeah, that's what I didn't see anything
Yeah.
on the plans and the surveys, but just wanted to confirm that that was the case. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Oh, Member Jarvis.
You're not going to avoid me, sorry. Thank you, through the chair to the planner. No, it's about the shed. If the shed was called a dryland boathouse, would we'd be discussing this part of the aspect of it?
Through the chair, if the shed met the definition of dryland boathouse, which unfortunately it does not, it would still need a variance due to that side yard. So the
Side yard
boathouse
setback.
is still subject to a 5-meter setback.
Sure, I understand that, and that was going to be my next question to the owners. Have you heard anything from your neighbors with regards to the setback on your property line? Obviously, we've got no correspondence. I'm just curious.
Yeah, actually, our neighbor did have it marked because we had never had a survey done until just recently. He had it marked and our property goes like this. He assumed it went like this. So he has a mark on a rock over here. So he thinks that that there's a lot more space than there actually is. So.
And if you won't tell them, I won't tell them. Okay.
No, they're wonderful people.
Okay, anyway.
We're a little bit, actually wish we didn't get a survey because we lost about a meter and a half property.
It's been known to happen. Okay, thank you.
That happens often in this township. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I will read the resolution. It is moved by Member Matthews and seconded by Member Rivet. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the following variances requested under minor variance application A25-15. 1. An increase of 60.78 square meters to the gross floor area of the dwelling for a total gross floor area of 137.58 square meters, whereas Section 411E permits an expansion of 19.2 square meters, 25% of the total gross floor area, of 96 square meters. 2, an increase of 11.58 meters to the width of the dwelling for a total width of 18.9 meters, whereas Section 411E permits an increase of 6 meters for a total width of 13.32 meters. a deck expansion of 19.1 square meters within the required front yard and with a front yard setback of 3.6 meters, whereas the current deck has a front yard setback of 3.8 meters, and section 411A permits the reconstruction expense provided the front yard is not reduced or expansion is not within the required yard. And 4, a deck that projects 16.4 meters into the existing front yard, whereas a projection of 16.2 meters currently exists, and section 4.20A permits a projection of 4 meters into the required front yard. And 5, a shed located at 0.3 meters from the side lot line, whereas section 4.1.7A requires a minimum of 5 meters from the side lot line. And 6, a shed with a required front yard setback of 4.8 meters, whereas section 4.1.7C requires a 20-meter setback, and subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And 2, that the development be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out on the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And 3, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permits be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the application is approved. Yeah. Okay. Our next motion, if I could have your attention, please, gentlemen and ladies. Our next motion is moved by Member Graziano, and seconded by Member Schmidt. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Community of Adjustment does now adjourn at 12:15 p.m. until May 9th, 2025 at 10 a.m. or at the call of the chair. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Are we